Hello, my name is Gray.
And my name is Crystal.
And this is Bust the Asian Beauties, a supernatural commentary podcast where I, someone who has seen this show several times,
and I, someone who only knows the show through social media, discuss every single episode of Supernatural from start to finish. Also, we are both Asian.
Both Asian, so for today's episode, we will be discussing Season 1, Episode 22, Devil's Trap, written by Eric Kripke, directed by Kim Manners. Before we start the episode, we would like to announce yet again that we will be doing a Q&A next episode. So when this releases, the deadline of the questions is gonna be in a day and a half. So that's April 2, 2022 at 23:59 Eastern Time. So send us your questions, and further details are in the description.
Looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say, if anything.
Okay, so I honestly don't know how to talk about this episode, because you watched this episode a day before, right?
Yes.
I watched it. I literally exited off the thing that I
last
watched from.
minute.
Yeah. And then I hopped into our call, and that's how it works for me. I watch everything last minute. So I feel like it hasn't had time to brew, you know?
Yeah.
So let's see if I have any meaningful input in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to even things out, I slept for half an hour and then woke up for this. So we're probably both going to be really bad at podcasting today.
Great. Okay, so before going in, Crystal, our usual deal, what did you know about this episode?
So I know that my ex-fiance liked this one, which is impressive for her, I think. I knew we would get canon John Azazel.
Well,
I know
not
that
yet.
in this episode? I mean, he's in him.
Okay, sure.
Right. I know that they kill that random guy that we saw last episode, and that makes Azazel mad. I also know that they think John escapes, but it turns out that he's actually possessed, and he tells Dean that he's proud of him, even though Dean used a bullet on killing Azazel's other son, and that's how Dean realizes that John is possessed. And also that, like, John tells Sam to shoot him while Azazel's in him, and Dean yells at him to not, and then, like, they don't kill John, sadly, and also that it ends in a car crash. So I think I got most of it.
Yeah, you got most of it. I would say you knew more than me going into the episode. Because, is this like a Bad Moon Rising effect, or as in the fake Bad Moon Rising, or is it just like general knowledge?
I think it's because of Bad Moon Rising.
Bad Moon Rising is getting a lot of free promo in this podcast, and you know what? Deserve.
Yeah, everyone read Bad Moon Rising by Gone_Girl on AO3 now.
A lot of the things in this episode surprised me when they happen. Like, I know the big parts, which is that towards the end, Dean has that speech, and then John, like, says, "No, I'm proud of you, actually," and that culminates to how the episode ends. It's nice to be surprised by a supernatural episode. I knew that the things that happened in Supernatural, but not in this one. So it's nice to be like, oh, that happens in this episode, and that's how they all tie together. It's actually very rewarding to watch Supernatural quite blind. Anyway, let's get into the road so far before the actual episode. So the road so far is quite unremarkable. I don't really care.
What is the song that's playing?
The song is It's Fight the Good Fight by Triumph, which is not a song I'm familiar with, I don't think.
Yeah,
my thoughts regarding the road so far is that last week's was better, because I really liked last week's. Because, though, the reason why is this one was kind of a salvation, the road so far, and not season 1, the road so far, you know?
Yeah, I had to see John's face way too much.
Yeah, so true.
Oh, also, it had a bunch of, like, fade effects, like, you know, like early 2010s
Yeah.
YouTube AMVs, which was quite amusing to look at.
Which I respect. I respect that.
I do respect the olden AMVs, but I prefer a clean cut myself.
I just thought to myself that, like, I understand why Carry On My Wayward Son got the crown, you know? For, like, playing in every finale going forward. It is a powerful song for, like, the kind of montage that they're going for. So yeah, more praise to last week's montage, I guess. But yeah, for the episode itself, we pick up where we left off last episode, which was Dean calling John and Meg picking up the phone. She tells Dean that they're never gonna see John ever again, and Dean hangs up and he says they got Dad in, like, the shakiest voice humanly possible. Sam presses at this, asking what Meg said, but Dean says, like, I just told you, Sammy, and he is, like, obviously in distress. He does the thing that you pointed out last time when he was shocked that, like, he puts his hand on his face and you can see his ring.
Yeah, go gay boy.
His hand looks so small in comparison to his face.
Those fingers are not going in anyone's mouth on Friday.
Exactly. This is why Misha got that role, Jensen.
Yeah, it was nice to see Dean freak out, I think, because from what I've seen of later seasons, when Dean's scared, Jensen Ackles just pulls, as our mutual has put it, let's give them blue steel for the 500th time. So,
Yeah.
I'm glad that he gets to be a scared little kid in season 1.
Dean gets the colt and starts packing up. And Sam asks, like, oh, we're going? Why do we have to go? Dean says because the demon knows we're in Salvation, 1. And 2, it knows that we've got the colt. 3, it's got Dad. And 4, it's coming for us next because it knows that we're here. Sam says, yeah, like, well, let the demon come to us. We have 3 bullets left.
Revenge mode Sam is so fun. Like, yes, go murder.
And Dean says no, and that they're no good to anyone dead. So they are leaving.
Yeah. So they're in the Impala now, and Sam is still mad that Dean won't let him do murders.
I love the camera work in this scene. It's very shaky.
I don't remember anything about it.
I think it's a different angle than one that we're used to. And it's shaking a lot to show you how tense the episode is, I guess. They actually, like, Kim Manners does a very good job of upping the tense factor in this episode, I feel like. Or maybe that's just because, like, no, I think he does do a good job. So, good job, Kim Manners.
Thanks, Kim Manners. So Dean's still very focused on the John situation, and he's saying that they're probably keeping Dad alive. We have to figure out where, and they're probably gonna want to trade him for the gun. Sam says, Dean, if that were true, why didn't Meg mention a trade? And he starts mentioning that John might already be dead. But Dean is, per usual, very resistant to the idea. Sam says that if John is dead, then we should just try to kill Azazel. We still have the Colt. Let's go for it. I'm just trying to do what he would want. He would want us to keep going. Dean is very mad, says that Sam should stop talking about John like he's dead already, and that everything stops until we get him back. Everything. So they try to figure out how to find John, and they realize that they probably need help. And they show up at Bobby's junkyard. And I yell at the screen, this was supposed to be Missouri!
I actually, like, didn't know that this is what I was talking about, that, like, I was surprised I didn't know that Bobby shows up in season 1. Like, I guess my mind categorized this as like a season 2 event, Bobby showing up. The fact that he's here actually made me really excited. Like, I wrote in my notes, Bobby!
And I wrote in my notes, where's Missouri? Go away.
How do you think Missouri would have helped in this kind of situation?
Let's see. I mean, do we think that she also has knowledge of, like, devil's traps and things like that? Oh, maybe she would have had some more, like, witchcraft-related things for trapping demons.
Yeah.
I mean, they made up this lore like they could have made up other lore for Missouri.
So, we're at Bobby's place. And he gives Dean a flask. This is how they introduce Bobby. So there's 2 flasks on the desk. He picks them up. He goes to Dean. He hands one to Dean. And Dean says, "Is this holy water?" And Bobby says, "That one is. This one," and he points to the flask that he's holding, "is whiskey." And he drinks from it, and then he gives it to Dean, who drinks from it.
Doesn't Cass describe Bobby as an old drunk in the intro to The Man Who Would Be King? Which is very rude, but I guess is a very establishing feature of Bobby early on.
Yeah. Sorry, Bobby.
Sorry, Bobby. He looks so weird in season 1, though. He looks so young.
I think, to me, this is like Bobby. Because Bobby in my head is Bobby when Sam dies and then Dean sacrifices his soul. And then, like, they have that whole confrontation. Do you know that scene?
Not really. Bobby to me is Bobby and The Man Who Would Be King, because all characters are just who they are in The Man Who Would Be King, because Cass, I miss Cass. Have you heard of Cass?
Yeah, but like for me, Bobby is like season 1 to 3 Bobby. Or I guess like that in my head, season 2 to 3 Bobby. So while all this is happening, we see Sam doing research in the background. And we go back to Dean and Bobby. And Dean says, "Thanks to Bobby." He says, "Thanks for everything. I wasn't sure if I should have come." Bobby says, "That's nonsense. Your daddy needs help." And Dean says, "Yeah, but the last time we saw you, you did threaten to blast him full of buckshot. You cocked the shotgun and everything."
And this is how we learned that Bobby was John's 4th ex-boyfriend of the week.
I think people would go up in their arms about that comment, actually. Like,
well, I think that Jim Beaver wore a t-shirt that read, "I read John Bobby," so they're gonna have to go through him first.
Did he really?
Yeah, I've seen photos. Maybe they were edited, but
I don't really remember whether we get the backstory for that. Like, I know that, like, Bobby raised Sam and Dean a bit.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't remember the specifics of John and Bobby's thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me neither. I feel like in fic I've read, it's always been, like, him threatening John over his treatment of Sam and Dean, but that may just be wishful thinking on the half of the fic writers.
Well, there's evidence, there's like groundwork for it. So,
yeah.
So it makes sense. Bobby jokes that John just had that effect on people, and on a more serious note, he says that all that matters is getting John back. So, in the background, there's a lot of times in this episode where I feel like they just go, "We'll give Dean a scene, but Sam is also here, so we need to give him a scene as well."
It's so annoying. Like, this is Sam's show and this is Sam's season. How fucking dare you?
I have a lot to say about that later, so we'll get into it when we get into it. So Sam speaks up from the background and he says, like, he's never seen a book like this one that Bobby has. And Bobby says it's the Key of Solomon. And we, the audience, and Sam are both introduced to the concept of demon traps. And it never even occurred to me that they were not introduced prior to this. Like, I was just like, they just know it, you know? We just never had the opportunity to use it. But like the fact that there is a very clear introduction of it, it's actually quite fun. Bobby then says that, so Bobby introduces the devil's trap, and then he says that what the boys have gotten themselves into is some serious crap. And he explains that usually he sees 3, maybe 4, if we're pushing it, demonic possessions per year. This year, though, he's seen 27 so far. So he says he doesn't know why this is, but something big is happening. He says storm's coming, and you boys and your daddy, you're smack in the middle of it. And then suddenly, the dog outside that we saw in the introductory shot to Bobby's house barks, and Bobby looks outside and the dog turns out to be missing. And he says something's wrong. And Meg kicks open the front door.
Oh, kick down more doors, please. Very good.
Yeah. Maybe we should send this to Anastasia Jane. Maybe she could make Meg X Anastasia content. Dean tries to pour holy water on Meg, but she throws him towards a cabinet, so he's knocked out. Sam goes in front of Bobby and in a gesture which looks like he's trying to defend him, and he starts walking them away, seemingly to back off and to protect, again, Bobby. So that's happening while Meg is talking. She's saying that she wants the cult. Sam says, oh, we don't have it. We buried it. And Meg starts a little monologue where she says, like, no more crap. And that she's underwhelmed by the Winchesters and that Johnny tried to pawn off a fake gun, and then he leaves the real gun to you two chuckleheads. Lackluster, man. And she's speaking all this in her iconic voice. So, like,
yeah.
I say it and it's, like, kind of boring, but she says it and it's like, go Meg. She asks them if they really thought she wouldn't find them. And then Dean appears from the back and says, actually, we were counting on it. He looks up, and so does Meg. And we see, dun dun dun, a devil's trap. And this one actually looks quite different from what we usually see devil's traps as in Supernatural. This one is a lot more intricate.
Yeah, it's prettier.
Yeah. I feel like they were just like, can Sam and Dean realistically draw this devil's trap like at every single situation where they need to draw a devil's trap? Probably not. And so they chose like a simpler design.
This one was probably one Bobby already had in his house, right?
He just had this in his ceiling. Yeah.
Yeah, good for Bobby.
Go Bobby. And Dean looks at Meg and says, gotcha.
So Meg is now tied to a chair beneath the devil's trap, and they decide to start interrogating her.
I have very strong memories of this interrogation. I remember it so well, which is why it is so surprised to me, because like, how did I not remember that Bobby is in this episode?
Bobby was here.
Because I remember this so well, and I don't think I've watched this episode since I watched it years and years back. So I'm surprised, but like when Dean says, like, when he says bitch, that line, like I was like, oh, I remember this incredibly well. I think I ingrained on this scene. Is that the word? Ingrained? Whatever.
Imprinted?
Imprinted. I imprinted on this scene when I was younger, like a baby duck. Probably because it was the first time that Dean is like this, right? Like, he is this violent and this just angry.
Yeah, no, Dean's interesting here.
Yeah, I literally wrote in my notes for that entire segment. I wrote one thing in my notes, and it was interesting.
Literally interesting. So Meg's tied up, and she's just being kind of sexual at them. Which, again, like, Meg literally is if Dean was not taken off the rack earlier, right? Because I could see Dean, like, saying these exact same lines if he was in a certain situation like this one. Like, Meg starts off by saying, if you wanted to tie me up, all you had to do was ask. Like, Dean would say that, right?
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Yeah, but also, female villain being very sexualized is a bad look for Supernatural. But I guess if Dean would say that too, hashtag equality. So Bobby mentions that he salted the door and windows, and Dean takes over the interrogation. He asks, "Where's our father, Meg?" She says, "You didn't ask very nice." And Dean says, "Where's our father, bitch?" And I'm pulling out my spreadsheet. Gray, can I have a point?
I mean, like, yes, you can. But also, I want to dig deeper into what's happening here. Because I guess at this point, Dean doesn't see Meg as, a person, a human being.
Right.
He sees her as a demon. An it, Which is why, like, the whole thing later on was like, don't hit her. There's an actually living, like, human girl inside there.
Yeah.
So a part of me is like it is still a gendered offense. Well, offense. I use that term, but, like, you know what I mean. Like, it is still a gendered thing to say, but I am more willing to be lenient on Dean here because he doesn't think he's speaking to a human person. Now, like, the convolutedness of, like, are demons people, like, humans versus people, what is and what is not, like, shit like that. It's like, I don't think this is the episode to get into it. It is still it's still worth a misogyny point. Yeah. Like, I'm not saying that, I'm not, like, trying to defend him. But,
no,
like,
I got that.
But I kind of, like, get that, like, because she's weaponizing her gender, right? She's weaponizing her sexuality in this scenario. Like, Dean would acknowledge that in this way is something that I can get as, like, an offensive strategy.
Yeah. Though, I mean, I guess the fact that he sees her as genderless but is still doing this is also kind of annoying, but I get it as, like, a response to her using her gender. So Meg says in response to "Where's our father, bitch?" "Geez, you kiss your mother with that mouth? Oh wait, I forgot. You don't." And this, like, gets Dean so angry. Like, why is he that mad? Like, has he not been bullied for having a dead mom, like, all throughout his childhood? Like, shouldn't he be used to it by now?
No, because, like, he knows that these people are somehow involved in that murder. So, of course, it's gonna, hype up more emotions.
As foreshadowing for something I'm going to say in season 14, your mom's dead, Dean? Get over it.
I actually have a lot to say about that in response, but let's keep it in season 14, I feel like.
Jack did nothing wrong, and in fact, he should kill Mary again.
No.
He shouldn't. I disagree with my statement, but also... Alright, continuing on. So yeah, Dean loses it. He starts, like, shoving her chair. He's yelling, "You think this is a friggin' game? Where is he? What did you do to him?" And I thought Meg's strategy during the scene would be to get Dean so angry that he accidentally shoves the chair out of the circle, but I guess it never gets to that point. So Meg tells him he died screaming, I killed him myself," and then Dean, like, hits her in the face, and Meg, like, it seems to hurt Meg, but then she responds with, "That's kind of a turn on, you hitting a girl." Okay. And Dean says, "You're no girl." And, okay, I know he means, like, you're not a human, but I was like, Supernatural's gender politics are simply diabolical.
What do you mean by that? Elaborate.
I guess I was combining this with Meg's whole, like, you throw, like, a girl in the previous episode. Like, I don't know, it just gave the effect of, like, if you're an evil girl, that makes you not a girl anymore. Like, you know, like, Lady Macbeth's, like, unsex me, like, take the, like, milk from my, like, breasts or whatever so that I may become a man and kill the king for my husband. Like, I don't know, Supernatural's gender politics, simply diabolical. Like, femininity is just automatically good or pure, and, like, you are no longer a girl if you are evil. But I know that's not what they actually meant, but that's really what it sounded like. Bobby tells Dean, like, hey, like, be careful, don't hurt her, because she really is a girl, that's why. And Sam's like, what are you talking about? And Bobby explains that Meg is a human being. Meg Master's possessed by a demon. And I think I wrote down, gosh, remember when Supernatural cared about vessels?
This entire episode has a lot of those moments where you're like, oh, remember when Supernatural cared about blah blah blah. So like the vessel, Dean's anger, like feeling guilty about what you're willing to do. And it's like, oh, remember when? Nice. What a throwback.
Yeah, so Dean looks shocked at this. He's like, are you trying to tell me there's an innocent girl trapped somewhere in there? But then he says, that's actually good news. So, we cut to Sam looking through books for exorcisms, and Dean tells Sam, hit it, Sam. And Sam starts reading in Latin. Meg goes, an exorcism? Are you serious? And Dean says, oh, we're going for it, baby. Head spinning, projectile vomiting, the whole 9 yards. So as Sam continues reading, Meg starts to respond with pain and also with anger. She's doing her typical threat of ripping bones and flesh from people's body. And Dean says, no, you're going to burn in hell unless you tell us where our dad is. So as Meg continues to be in pain, she seems to give in. But she just says, he begged for his life with tears in his eyes. He begged to see his sons one last time. That's when I slit his throat. Go, Meg! I mean, I think at this point it is kind of clear that the pain's getting to her because, like, that's very clearly, like, narrativized. But, you know, go, Meg. I'm glad that you're still trying to make it hurt.
You know, wait, I had a thought. This just reminds me of, like, because, like, she doesn't want to go to hell so bad. And it reminds me of that scene where, like, Cass calls Rowena, scene as in the fic, all things something something tomorrow by the one that you really like.
Yeah.
Cass, like, talks to Rowena, and Rowena said that she rehabilitated hell.
Yeah.
Oh, I hope the demons are not suffering as bad in hell.
Yeah, me too. No, but you do have a good point about, like, how much Meg doesn't want to go back to hell, because as we learn in season 3, like, all demons are humans who went to hell and then were, like, tortured so badly that their souls became corrupted. So, like, yeah, like, they are also victims.
Yeah.
Dean responds to Meg's claim, for your sake, I hope you're lying, because if it's true, I swear to God, I will march into hell myself, and I will slaughter each and every one of you evil sons of bitches, so help me God. And he's, like, really yelling.
It's fascinating to me that, like, he reverts to son of bitches.
Right.
In this scene, because I guess he is now able to separate Meg from the body. Weird. It's actually really fascinating. Like, what is going on inside your head?
I think he's just doing, like, you know, like how for group words you use the male noun. Right?
Come on. We're not speaking in Spanish.
He says every single one of you sons of bitches, like, he's assuming that, like, the demons will be of mixed genders, and he is taking male as the default.
Hashtag Spanish dub Dean.
Yeah, I guess in Spanish dub Dean, he would be attracted to some of those sons of bitches as well. Yeah, Sam continues the exorcism. Poor Sam, like, he's been given nothing to do this whole episode so far.
Okay, I like I said, I'll get into it later.
Yeah. Dean continues questioning Meg, and she keeps telling him that John is dead. And Dean sort of breaks, and he goes, "No, he's not. He's not dead. He can't be." And Sam's looking concerned, and he just goes, "What are you looking at? Keep reading."
I love that scene.
Yeah.
I love it because it's like an acknowledgement of what's happening, right? And like sometimes I, watch future episodes like for the heck of it. Like there are scenes where Dean gets angry, and the only acknowledgement that we get that Sam is in any way affected by this is Jared flinches. And that's it. Like that's it. Here in this one, like we have the look, and we also have the verbal confirmation that like this is what's happening, which is that Sam is uncomfortable by Dean being so angry. And I appreciate that, and I guess it would get tiresome if every single time Dean gets mad, like Dean is like, "What you looking at?" but like it also gets tiresome that Dean is so mad all the fucking time. So like, I mean, choose one problem, Supernatural, and fucking double down on it.
Yeah. So Sam is like, okay, and keeps going. And finally Meg starts telling the truth. She says he will be. He's not dead, but he will be after what we do to him. Dean continues pressing for information by having Sam continue exercising her. And she reveals that he's being kept in a building in Jefferson City, Missouri. Dean asks for an address, which Meg says that she doesn't know. Sam asks where the demon is, and Meg also says that she doesn't know, which, is a nice display of Sam and Dean's different priorities during this scene.
Yeah.
And yeah, Meg says, like, "I swear that's all I know." And Dean says to Sam, "Finish it. Finish the exorcism." And Meg is upset because, the sort of underlying assumption was that if she told them stuff, then she was not going to be sent back to hell. And Dean says, "I don't care." And Meg says, "You son of a bitch, you promised." And Dean, like, yells in her face, "I lied." And he tells Sam to keep reading. And Sam looks quite uncomfortable at this, as are the rest of us, I'd say. But Dean commands Sam, "Read." Sam says, like, maybe we can still use her, find out where the demon is. And then Dean says that there's an innocent girl trapped somewhere in there. We've got to go help her. And then Bobby, who decides to drop this information now instead of like 10 minutes ago.
This is why I forgot you were here, Bobby.
Yeah, you were being so fucking useless. He was like, "No, you can't. You're gonna kill her because she fell from a building and that girl's body is broken. So without Meg inside of her, she's just gonna straight up die." Why are you mentioning this now, Bobby? Dean says we're not gonna leave her like that, and Bobby says she is a human being. Ugh, remember when Supernatural cared about vessels? And Dean says, well, we're gonna put her out of her misery. And then Dean demands that Sam finish the exorcism twice more, and then Sam finally agrees to it.
So, you mentioned that you felt uncomfortable in this scene.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. He promised.
I promise that I will not exercise you.
Exactly.
I don't know. Meg has been tossing them around like ragdolls throughout this episode. So
and she should do it again.
For me, it felt a bit I feel like I have no fucking idea why I even brought this up. I don't even know what I feel like.
I understand that it's deserved. But also, I just think the point is that, like...
You're supposed to look at Dean and be like, whoa, Dean.
Right, and also, if the quote-unquote good guys of, like, a show are supposed to have a certain set of morals that they abide by, and I feel like sticking with your promise and, like, taking the higher ground over the quote-unquote bad guys is part of it, so that felt like crossing a line.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's fascinating to me that they paint Dean as the one who is more ruthless. And then they have Sam be like, oh, no. But he, like, it's like he's grasping for straws for an excuse. Like, he says he could help find the demon, but it's like he doesn't actually believe that, you know?
Right.
And like, they really, like you said, like, they were trying to paint Sam as, like, the more heroic one because he sticks to the promise, and Dean as the more, like, at this point, deranged, I guess, person because, like, he is so upset and so taken by, like, having to save John and, you know, being angry, etc. I just thought that was fascinating, I guess. And, like, I too felt uncomfortable in the scene. And me asking you why is not, like, questioning why you felt uncomfortable. It's, like, more me questioning why I felt uncomfortable, you know? Because, like, it should make sense, but the framing of it makes it so that you feel apprehension anyway.
Right. Yeah, like, Dean is really going off the rails here. What will he do next? So, finally, Meg is exorcised. She throws her head back, she screams, like a big cloud of black smoke comes out of her mouth. Way more than in, like, most demon exorcisms that I've seen before on Supernatural gift sets. And she's gone. Meg Masters, which I think is what I'm going to use to refer to the human, Meg Masters is left behind, and there's blood dripping from her mouth and her nose. So she's still alive, but very badly injured. Dean tells Bobby to call 911, and Dean and Sam untie Meg Masters.
Here's an advice to, like, just people in general, I guess. I guess it doesn't apply to every situation, but, like, in most situations, don't move an injured person.
Yeah.
This entire scene, I was like, why are you making her lie down? Why are you making her drink water? Like, Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, like, the blood is going to come out of her faster, you guys. You're breaking more bones every second you're doing this.
And the way they put, like, a cracking bone sound effect when they lift her.
Yeah, like, just keep her in the chair, you guys. So they're sort of trying to be soothing at first, breaking all of her bones again as they lower her to the ground. And Meg Masters is clearly suffering. She, like, says, like, it's been a year. I've been awake for some of it. I couldn't move my own body. The things I did. It's a nightmare. And, like, she's clearly having a very emotional moment.
Yeah.
And Dean just swoops in with, was it telling us the truth about our dad? Come on, Dean.
Yeah.
Come on.
And it's Sam. Sam calls him out. But Sam, like, rides in on it too. So, like, what a fucking hypocrite, this guy.
Yeah. You both suck so bad. Yeah, Sam goes like, Dean, come on. And Dean goes, we need to know. And Meg Masters, who is such a champ, answers? Like, I would just, like, spit blood at him and then die.
She answers in detail, too. Like, she's not just giving some answers. Like, she dies before, like, the sunrise comment. Like, she dies. Yeah. That's the reason why she wasn't able to say. If she stayed alive a little bit longer, they would have known what the fuck it meant.
Yeah. God. But I guess maybe I get it in terms of, like, the words she was just talking about. She was talking about how, like, guilty and awful she feels about all the things she did.
Yeah, so she would try to help.
Yeah, she's like, well, I'm definitely gonna die right now, so let me try to undo some of the damage that I feel, like, irrationally responsible for. She says that he is still alive, but they want you to come for him. And, yeah, Bobby brings in water, which, like, also probably killed her faster. And Sam, that hypocrite, jumps in and says, "Where's the demon we're looking for?" And Meg says that he's not there, there's other ones as well. And then Dean asks, "Where are they keeping our dad?" And she says, "By the river, sunrise." And her eyes sort of turn glassy, and her head turns back. And Dean says, "Sunrise? What does that mean?" And then he kind of, like, yells in her dead corpse face, "What does that mean?" Yeah. Come on, Dean. You're so rude. Let this poor woman die in peace. Yeah, she's dead. Sorry, Meg Masters.
What a behemoth of a scene. It was so long, and I was waiting, because, like, I take notes, right, when I watch. So I was literally just waiting for it to end, like, come on. Anyway.
So our takeaways were just that Dean and Sam kind of suck.
They do kind of suck. So, as they go out, Sam, Dean, and Bobby are talking about what Bobby's gonna do when the paramedics come. And Bobby says, like, "You guys think you invented lying to the cops?" Which is so casual for someone who just saw someone die such a gruesome death.
Yeah, it's like, that was fun. Bye, guys.
He offers Sam a book, and Dean thanks him again for everything. And Bobby tells the boys to bring John around. And he says, "I won't even try shooting him this time." And as the boys head out, we linger on Bobby. And I wrote in my notes, that means something, I guess.
I mean, I think it just means that John's never gonna come around because he's so gonna die.
Yeah. And, like, you think Bobby knows that. Is that the implication?
No, I think it's just, like, we're just supposed to feel dread about the fact that, like, Bobby's request will not eventually be honored.
Be granted.
But it could also be that, Again, John's fourth ex-boyfriend of the week.
So, we drive off somewhere and park somewhere. And Sam is reading the book that Bobby gave him. And Dean is prepping his weapons. Sam comments that Dean has been quiet. And Dean says, like, he's just getting ready. Sam reassures him that John is gonna be fine. And continues flipping through the book. And he notices a sigil. He goes to the trunk and starts drawing on it with a pen.
I don't know.
What is this? Is this a chalk pen?
But like, Dean tries to rub it off and it doesn't come off, so it can't just be chalk. Maybe it's like one of those whiteout pens, you know?
Like, you mean like a liquid eraser?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Yeah, maybe it is. Of course, Dean gets defensive about, you know, the writing on
his girlfriend.
Yeah, on his car girlfriend. Wait, that like tweet that, like, you remember that guy who like thought he was dating his car and he didn't want to tell people, not because he's dating his car, but because the car is a guy and he thinks it's gay.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. I should have assumed his car boyfriend.
Yeah, exactly. That's his car boyfriend. Sam explains that what he's drawing is a devil's trap, and that could turn the trunk into a lockbox. So they can hide the Colt in the trunk while they get Dad. Dean's all like, "No, we're bringing the Colt." Sam says there are 3 bullets left, which means that we can't use them willy-nilly. Like, we have to use it for the demon. Dean is very adamant that, like, no, like, our priority is saving Dad. Sam points out that John himself won't want them to bring the gun. And then Dean says, "I don't care what Dad wants, and since when did you care what Dad wants?" Sam starts, like, matching Dean's tone, i.e., like, shouting. So he says, like, "We want to kill the demon, and you used to want that too. You're the one who came and got me at school. You're the one who dragged me back into this, Dean. I'm just trying to finish it." Okay. Do you think Dean's hesitance to kill the demon? Well, it's not hesitance. Like, his priority is more to protect John than to kill the demon. But also, it does come off as like he just doesn't want to deal with the demon anymore. Do you think it's somehow related to what he said in Shadow? That like, if they solve this case, Sam will go away and John will probably haul ass and like force Dean to live a life of his own. And he would be very lonely. So like a part of me is like maybe that's the reason why he's so like, we don't even need to kill the demon, you guys. Like, because he thinks that he's gonna lose everything once this demon is dead.
Yeah, no, I do think that's part of it, because this is the only life he's really ever known besides when Sam went away to college, so he would like things to stay the way that they are. And also I think, like, more recently, the fact that Sam was, like, totally willing to die in a fire to kill the demon is making Dean very concerned about this mission in general.
Dean continues to say, you and Dad are more alike than I thought. You both can't wait to sacrifice yourself for this thing. But you know what? I'm gonna be the one to bury you.
Head in my hands.
Oh my god. This is the part where I was watching the episode and I was like, what the fuck do I even say about this? Like, genuinely. Like I have to say something about it because it's such an important line, but like, what do you say? He is gonna be the one to bury them. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Ouchie.
But it did make me feel a lot of emotions.
Same here.
Do you pronounce it Antigone or Antigone?
Antigone? Yeah.
Okay. I think in the French version you pronounce it Antigone, and I read the one by John Anouilh.
Okay.
Because I like it better.
Oh yeah, I think I stick to Anne Carson translations because I'm a basic Tumblrina.
The like very Antigonecore, I guess.
Yeah,
you know, I read Antigone way past Supernatural. Like I was like fully over Supernatural.
And then it got you back in.
Yeah, like back then I was like, oh, like actually Antigone is more Sam coded, right?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, but also like another Antigone thing I remember in the Anne Carson translation, like the chorus says about her, like, got a soul as raw as her father, doesn't she? Which is also, I think, both Sam and Dean core.
Yeah, and also like I read the John Anouilh version, which is not a translation, it's more an adaptation. But like, you know how the chorus would say at the beginning that like this is a tragedy. Like, I mean, they do this in a lot of tragedies, but like in Antigone it hit me more than it hit in anything else. That like, damn, this is a tragedy. It's like supernatural core.
I can't believe Supernatural invented tragedy.
Okay, Dean says, like, it's selfish, you know that you don't care about anything other than revenge. And I was like, he used to care about school, he used to care about his fiance, and, like, being normal and having a life. Yeah. And you thought, like, Dean, you thought that was selfish too. So, like, I don't know, everything that Sam does is selfish.
Yeah, like, all you want Sam to want is what you want. Like, come on, Dean.
And Sam finally, like, you know, says that, no, I want Dad back too. But they're expecting us to bring that gun. They get the gun, they'll kill us. The cult is our only leverage, and you know it, Dean. We cannot bring that gun. We can't. Dean says, fine, like rather quickly. And Sam says, I'm serious. And Dean says, and I said, fine. So Dean takes the Colt out of his inside pocket in his jacket and then puts it in the trunk. But we don't actually see him put it in the trunk. And Sam walks away and I was like,
Sam, you idiot.
We all know what will happen here, you know? Like, Dean will bring the gun. But, like, Sam should have just stood there and watched. Just so, like, we the audience, won't be like, oh, he brought that fucking gun. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Alright, so Sam and Dean are walking by the river, like Meg Masters mentioned, and they see an apartment building called Sunrise Apartments. So that's probably where John is. They realize that, so, like, there's, like, kids and people out front in front of the apartments, so they realize that this is a pretty smart move, because these demons could be possessing anyone inside, make anyone attack them, and also Dean says, we can't kill them because they're inhumans. Remember when Supernatural cared?
The thing is, like, the reason why they can't kill them is because they can't kill them because they only have 3 bullets.
Yeah,
like, that's
too.
Literally, that's the only, like, barrier that they have. The moment they get the knife, like Ruby's knife, it's a toss-up. Like, it's all up in the air.
Yeah, time to kill people all the time.
But I get it. Like, we are at the era of convenience.
Exactly. Microwave meals, SpaghettiOs, and murder.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're right. So, yeah, and Sam says they know what we look like, but they could look like anyone. And Dean says, yeah, this sucks out loud, which I've never heard that turn of phrase before. It's very fun what Supernatural comes up with when they can't say this sucks ass.
They can say sucks ass.
Okay, well, then why didn't they say it? Because Dean's not allowed to suck ass, except in the Spanish dub. So they decide that, okay, let's get out all the civilians by pulling the fire alarm. And the city will respond in 7 minutes, during which they could do something. And I just think it's fun that, like, this all started with a house fire, and now they're trying to rescue John with a fake house fire. Like, that's fun. So Sam heads inside, he sneaks around a bit, and when the coast is clear, he pulls the alarm. We cut to a room in an apartment with a man and a woman, where the woman looks exactly like Meg Masters, except with dark hair.
I cannot recognize faces, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Huh. I think she just has a very similar haircut and face shape. Like, Meg the Demon has a type or something.
But this is not Meg.
Is it not? Oh, it's just some
No,
random...
because, like, when you get...
Oh, when you get exorcised, you can't... Yeah, you can't come back.
You go to hell, and then you have to make it back. And also, like, the way this person moves, Meg is hotter than this demon.
No, you're right. This demon moves rather robotically. You're right. I guess I just thought it was Meg because she just looks exactly like Meg Masters.
No.
Yeah, okay. I guess, like, Azazel's kids in general have a type. So they're sitting at a table, this man and a woman, and as the alarm goes off, they do not really look panicked. Instead, they go over to a bedroom door and check on it, and inside we see John tied to a bed, bleeding, and I wrote down, how dare they crucify John before crucifying Sam? That is Sam's thing.
They did not crucify John, because his legs are pulled apart.
Okay, fine, but I just think that any T-pose thing sort of counts.
I am a crucifix purist. You have to have your legs closed. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a good sex joke to make, but I can't think of it.
Yeah, we're not expert podcasters. We can't make up things on the fly. So, outside, the firefighters arrive, and Dean approaches one of them. He asks, what's up? And thus, the iconic line, I got a Yorkie upstairs, and he pees when he's nervous.
Oh, so good.
While this is happening, Sam is sneaking into the fire truck, and we see a shot of him unlocking the door. And then we cut to Sam and Dean walking around in fireman attires inside the apartment building. They have EMF meters out, and Dean says that, oh, I've always wanted to be a fireman when I was growing up. And Sam says, you never told me that.
Have you seen that post that was like, Dean wanting to be a fireman is so funny. At age 4, he rescued Sam from a fire and he decided to go professional.
No, I have actually not seen that. This reminds me, though, of that Ada Limon quote.
Oh, yeah, I love the way men love. Yeah.
I don't know if this has been web weaved before. Probably, because it's pretty in your face. But, like, yeah. Like, I love the way men love. Like, grandmother was buried without shoes, so, like, become a zapatero. I don't fucking know what the English of zapatero is. But, like, this is kind of like that, right?
Yeah,
shoemaker.
Yeah.
It's shoemaker.
Yeah, shoemaker. And, like, oh, like one of my friends knows the details of every plane crash ever, and it's because his brother is a pilot. Yeah. I love the way men love.
It's like your mom dies of a fire, so you become a fireman. You know? Normal shit. And then they get an EMF reading from the door. Inside, we see the two demons that we saw earlier, like, hear a furious knocking at the door. When they go to the door and look at the peephole, they see Sam and Dean. And they're saying, like, it's the fire department and you need to evacuate. The woman opens the door and gets immediately blasted by holy water, like through the hose of the fire department. I thought that was super fucking cool.
I liked that.
Sam and Dean end up locking them in the closet, and Sam puts a salt line in front of the closet door.
Home of phobia. Also, I don't get why, now that they know about devil's traps, like, why wouldn't they, like, draw a devil's trap on the inside of the closet door or something? Like, for salt, you can just huff and puff until it blows out.
Like, I guess it's, like, difficult. Like, it's time-consuming, and they have other pressing matters to do. But, like, my idea was, why don't you get, like, pre-made devil's traps and put it on sticker paper? And then fucking rip that shit and paste it on the wall, you know?
Yeah. You're right.
They take off their fireman clothes. And I was like, you know me. My first thought was, is this fan service? They're taking off a layer that they added. So is that fan service? And they enter the room where John is. Sam is standing by the door as Dean checks on John. And Dean confirms that he is still breathing. So Dean takes out a knife and starts cutting the ropes binding John. And then Sam stops him and says that, hey, Dad may be possessed. And he starts pouring holy water on John.
So smart. Giggling and twirling my hair. He's so smart.
He starts pouring holy water on John, and it doesn't sizzle. And also, it wakes John up. And John's like, why are you splashing water on me? And Sam breathes a sigh of relief. And John says that they've been drugging him. And he asks where the cult is. Sam says it's safe.
And I didn't know at what point in the episode, like, Azazel possesses John, but on that line I was like, oh, he's there. Though John would ask the same question immediately upon waking up too, so Azazel's doing a good job.
Yeah. Sam says, like, the cult is safe. And then John says, like, good boys. I am uncomfortable by the amount of times he says son in this episode. Do people actually say that? Like, daughter, son? Because here, like, we say anak, which means child. So, like, you say anak, and but, like, I have never heard, like, an English equivalent of it. I guess, apparently, I did, like, back then, when I watched this episode the first time.
My parents talk to me in Chinese, so, like, I don't know either.
Yeah, we will never know. In the crowd outside, a man gets possessed by a demon. And then the firefighter who was trying to stop him from going inside gets possessed by a demon as well. In the room, Sam and Dean and John are trying to get out. They get greeted by this fireman and this some guy. And Sam, Dean, and John try to go back into the room where they came from and lock themselves inside. But we see an axe go through the door, a la Shining. So, yeah, we cut to black after that.
So, Sam's pouring more salt around, and they start running out through the fire escape. And Sam's salting as he goes. And then suddenly he's attacked by that rando guy from the last episode, Meg's brother.
Yeah.
And he pins Sam down and starts, like, punching him in the face.
Beating the shit out of him.
Sorry, it looks so funny, though.
No!
I don't know if I'm just, like, way too accustomed to, like, cartoon why did I say romance? Sam X, Meg's brother. But, I think I'm too accustomed to cartoon violence, because it happens so much, and Sam just keeps thrashing his head back and forth, and it's like, I have a friend who knows fight choreography, so I was like, this is just Jared, like, banging his head around back and forth as nothing happens to him. But yeah, it does look pretty painful, because he starts bleeding from the head and stuff. Dean starts freaking out. He tries to kick the demon in the face. It doesn't work. He gets thrown into a car. And then suddenly, we hear a gunshot. And this guy has a bullet through the head. His skeleton flashes a bit, just like Luther's did. He's dead. And then we cut to a shot of the cult smoking. And then it pans over to Dean smoking. And this is a shot in every AMV ever and ever.
No, it's not this one. It's not this one. There's another one.
It looks exactly the same as the other one.
No, the other one is better.
Okay, well, I can't tell the
You
difference.
have to trust me.
Okay, alright. So, oh no. Dean brought the gun, and he wasted a bullet, but also Sam's okay. Gasp, drama. So he picks up Sam and starts running off, but as they do so, there's like a really long lingering shot of them looking at Meg's brother's vessel, like dead on the ground, and it's like the whole like, oh no, we killed a real guy, guilt, etc. moment. But then they continue running off.
Okay, so we drive to a cabin somewhere, and during this drive, we get our first, as I wrote in my notes, a theme from Americana.
Yeah, that's what
Did you notice? Yeah. And I was expecting the first use of this theme to be like, you know, like I told you, right? That like, oh, I'm so excited for when they use it because it's gonna be so emotional and it's like gonna be a big deal for me.
No,
and it's just them driving to somewhere. It's like, come on. So in the cabin, Sam is salting the windows and he asks Dean how John is. And Dean says, you know, he just needs a little rest. Dean asks Sam how Sam is, and Sam says, I'll survive. Sam then asks Dean if he thinks they got followed, and Dean says, like, he doesn't think so, because they really picked an out-of-the-way place to hole up in.
Do we know what this cabin is? Like, is it Rufus's cabin?
I don't think so.
Okay. Is it just a random cabin?
I think so.
Okay. That's fair.
Sam then very slowly says, Dean, you, and then he does the iconic like, this is like if you want to copy Sam Winchester, you do the like his little chuckle, whatever the fuck it is. So after he says his he says, you saved me. You saved my life back there. And Dean says, like, so I guess you're glad I brought the gun. And Sam says, like, Oh, come on. I'm trying to thank you here. And Dean goes,
This is very
well,
siblings.
you're welcome. It's very siblings, but the way it's shot is so tense. Like, we are supposed to feel like, when Dean says, you're welcome, like, we're supposed to feel like, but, there's a but that's about to come. And there is, like, something brewing in the background. And it feels really good. I mean, good in a, like, it feels, like, bad, but, like, in a good way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's well done.
It's well done. Go, Kim Manners. As Sam walks away, we linger on Dean's face until he says, "Hey, Sam, the guy I shot, there was a person in there." Sam tells Dean that Dean didn't have a choice, not really, and Dean replies that...
entirely true, but, like, I get what you mean, Sam.
Dean replies that that's not what bothers him. But what bothers him is killing that guy, killing Meg. He says he didn't even hesitate or flinch. He says, for you or Dad, the things I'm willing to do or kill, it's just... it scares me sometimes. And the theme from Americana. This one is like the whole theme. Starts playing. And, okay, this is the part where I address it, right? Yeah. I keep on calling it the theme from Americana. This is called Dean's family dedication theme. And I, for a long time, was in denial about that. I was like, no, it's not Dean's theme. Like, it's Supernatural's theme. This is the episode, like, I watched this today, and I was like, okay, it's Dean's theme. It is!
Big Dean girl
but it's
wins
Dean's
yet again.
theme. Yeah, God. It's Dean's theme, the way Supernatural is Dean's show. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which made me so mad. This entire episode, every time the camera was, like, focusing on Dean, I was screaming, like, how dare you? How dare you? But, yeah, they've decided it's Dean's show already.
Going into this podcast, going to season 1 of this podcast, I fully expected it to be more Sam-centric. Yeah. I guess we become more Sam-centric in season 2, actually. But in season 1, I expected it to be more Sam-centric than it is. And I was very disappointed. And for a long time, I was, like, very disappointed. But now I have just accepted it for what it is, which is, this is Dean's season. And this episode is a culmination of all of that.
I refuse to accept it.
And, like, if you think of it in that way... this is a good episode. So, I don't know. Like, for me, I am trying to have less pushback with this show, I guess. Just so that I don't dread every single time I watch it. Like, now I have accepted, like, oh no, like, it's gonna be Dean's show. And it's probably gonna be Dean's show for the rest of the show. So, like, just, just accept it. It's fine. You're gonna be
actually
fine.
Eileen's show, and I'm waiting until season 11.
So true. After all this, John comes into the room, and he says to Dean, "It shouldn't," which is a reply to Dean saying it scares him. So John says, like, "It shouldn't. You did good." Dean asks, "Sure. You're not mad for me using a bullet?" John says, "No. I'm proud of you. Sam and I, we can get pretty obsessed. But you watch out for this family. You always have."
Head in my hands.
Okay. Like, this is what I was talking about when I said that, like, if you view this as, like, a Dean season, like, that John saying that is, like, the thesis of what has been happening, right?
Right.
Dean is the one that's holding this family together. And if you watch this episode from the perspective of, look at Dean trying to hold his family together, it is a very touching story.
Yeah, but I guess since I'm still thinking about it from the Sam perspective, like, I understand that they're painting Dean as, like, in the right and a hero in this episode and sort of the back half
No, I don't
of this
think
season.
so.
Or not as a hero, but, like, but yeah, it's about him holding the family together, but, like, then you remember that the family that he's trying to hold together, like, consisted of, like, child abuse and neglect, and that if they go back to the way things were before, like, it'll fucking suck.
Yeah. It's, again, like, there's complexity to it, which makes it so interesting. Which makes it
Right.
more interesting than just straight up, like, times are changing, but the past was good. Like, here, like,
Yeah.
the past was bad, and times are a-changing, but, like, Dean wants to hold on to that past because it's all he's ever known. Like, I think that's a more compelling story.
And I think something that I do like about this is that this is sort of coming along with Dean's, like, beginning to rebel a bit against John arc. So, like, I think if, like, the rest of the shit hadn't happened, it would have been possible for them to build a better family together if Sam didn't take off, which Sam has every right to do. So, yeah, I guess Dean probably could have helped fix things, but alas, a giant truck is going to very funnily crash into them soon.
Great. Dean says thanks, but, like, very timidly. And then the lights start flickering. John tells Sam to salt every window and every door, and tells Sam to check again when Sam says, like, oh, I already did that. And then John, as soon as Sam gets away, asks Dean for the gun. And Dean says, like, Sam tried to shoot the demon in Salvation, but he missed. And John says, this is me. I won't miss. Now the gun. Hurry. We linger over Dean's face and Dean holding the Colt. And then he looks at John. He clenches his jaw. And then he takes a couple of steps back as John keeps hounding him for the gun. Dean says quietly, he'd be furious that I wasted a bullet. He wouldn't be proud of me. He'll tear me a new one. He cocks the gun, points it at John, and says, you're not my dad. Dun dun dun!
Yeah.
Cool shit.
Ouch. I don't know what else to say, but, like, wow, that was a good scene.
It was a good scene, especially when he was, like, walking backwards, and then you can, like, you kind of realize it, because like I said, like, parts of this episode were really imprinted on me, like, when I was, like, younger. And I remember this scene, and I remember having the realization at the same time as Dean. Like, when Dean was like, oh, this is not Dad. Like, being right there with him. Yeah. And that's such a gratifying feeling that I wish you could have felt. But, like, of course, that's not gonna happen. But, yeah. Like, it was really fun for that to happen. And I felt like I was using my brain even though I was 13 and, like, never used my brain for anything. But, yeah.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to me what I do and do not remember about this episode, because it really wavers.
Yeah. Dean still has the gun pointed at John, but John keeps saying, like, it's me, like, what are you doing? Dean says, I know my dad better than anyone. Oh, and you ain't him. So Sam comes in and sees this whole scene. He's like, what is happening? And John says, your brother's lost his mind. But Dean tells Sam, like, this isn't Dad. I think he's possessed and has been possessed since we rescued him. We get Sam, like, being yelled at John and being talked to by Dean about, like, listen to him, no, listen to me. Dean says he's different. Like, as in he's nicer, which is so, And, John says, like, we don't have time for this. Sam, you want to kill this demon, you've got to trust me. So, very much trying to push Sam's revenge buttons. Sam is looking back and forth, and John asks again, Sam? And Sam says no, and goes to stand by Dean. And John says, fine, if you're both so sure, go ahead. Kill me. And Dean...
Kill him!
Kill him. Literally do it. Please. Please. Shoot that man. Dean is holding the gun, but he just does not shoot. And then John says, I thought so. And then his eyes are yellow. Woo! He throws Sam and Dean against a wall and pins them there.
Oh,
the Colt
by the
drops
way,
to the ground. Yeah.
did you hear the sound effect from when he lifts his head to reveal his eyes?
Oh, no?
It's like the windows closing sound. And I was so taken aback because this entire, the entire scene prior, I was like, oh, like, this is so serious and, like, so emotional and so whatever. And then the windows closing screen, whatever sound happens, and I was like, what the fuck? Well, I just thought to mention it because I found it so fucking funny.
It's pretty good. So, John, Azazel, I guess. Though we don't know his name yet. What should I call him?
We don't know his name. Yellow Eyes. That's what they
Yellow
call him.
Eyes picks up the gun, and Sam says, it's you, isn't it? We've been looking for you for a long time. And Yellow Eyes reveals that holy water doesn't work on something like him. Sam yells, I'm gonna kill you. And Yellow Eyes says, that'd be a neat trick. In fact, make the gun float to you there, psychic boy. Which is a very effective callback to Nightmare, right? Like, he's like, hey, remember that time you had a psychic friend and he made a gun float? Well, guess what he did with that? Youch. Then Yellow Eyes heads over to Dean, and I start booing and hissing again that they're making this episode about Dean. But regardless, it's happening, and he tells Dean, I could have killed you 100 times today, but this is worth the wait. He tells Dean that John is trapped in there with him. And apparently he says, hi, by the way. He's gonna tear you apart. He's gonna taste the iron in your blood. And, okay, I know he meant, like, John's gonna suffer because he's gonna kill you and he's not gonna like that. But when he said he's gonna tear you apart, because it sounded so much like Dean's, like, tear me a new one. Yeah. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, John's in there right now yelling at Dean.
And he's fucking furious. Come on, John.
Come on, John.
Actually, like, up until now, that's how I interpreted that line until you just said, like, you mean, like, he's gonna kill him, like, as a demon, as a person possessed. I was like, oh, that makes more sense.
Yeah, but maybe John's also mad. We don't know. So Dean says, let him go, or I swear to God. And Yellow Eye says, what? What are you and God gonna do? You see, as far as I'm concerned, this is justice. You know that little exorcism of yours? That was my daughter. The one in the alley? That was my boy. You understand. And Dean says, you've gotta be kidding me. And Yellow Eye says, what? You're the only one that can have a family? Ugh, which is so good. I wish they got more into this. Do we, like, learn any more about the Meg Azazel Rando Guy family at all?
I generally have no fucking idea.
Okay, yeah, but, like, especially since, like, he's in John right now, like, they're clearly supposed to be an echo of, like, the fucked up, like, John, Sam, and Dean dynamic, but, like, I don't know if we get more. I would like more. Yellow Eye says, you destroyed my children. How would you feel if I killed your family? Then he says, oh, right. Oh, I forgot. I did. God, I see where Meg gets her sense of humor.
Yeah. That's exactly the joke Meg makes, you know? So
yeah, like, I forgot you can't kiss your mom. Haha. Yeah, like, they are a family, and I would like to see more. Oh, well.
I just had an idea when you said that, like, like it's an echo of the John, Sam, and Dean family. Because like, the Dean mirror, which is Meg, befriends Sam.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm like I'm trying to give the guy demon personality, I guess. Like, is he the Sam mirror? Is he quite a rebel in the family? Is he the black sheep? It's just a thought that I had.
No, they should fully go ham on the parallels, I agree. Sam says, I want to know why. Why'd you do it? And Yellow Eyes says, you mean why did I kill Mommy and pretty little Jess? And Sam says, yeah. And then Yellow Eyes turns back to Dean. Fuck off.
Like, this entire scene, like, this is what I was talking about, that, like, sometimes they write Dean scenes and they remember, like, Sam's supposed to be here too. Like, this is literally what I was talking about.
The House MD meme with I2M.
Like, I'm also here. Wilson going, I am also here in this episode. Like, it's literally Sam. Like, in this scene, they literally just forget him. And it's like, come on, dude. And I get that, like, they're trying to kill Dean, so, like, they have to focus on him. But, come on.
Yeah. Especially since, like, Sam is who Azazel did all of this for. Like, Sam is his, like,
why is he, like, obsessed with Dean?
Yeah. Don't get it. It makes no sense. He tells Dean, you know I never told you this, but Sam was gonna ask her to marry him. Been shopping for rings and everything. And I guess what I was thinking during this time was, like, we know that John was also spying on Sam while he was at Stanford, right? And, like, presumably Azazel was doing it too. So I guess I was wondering...
Like, is this John's memory?
Yeah, like, is this John's memory or is this Azazel's memory? And also, did John Azazel have a meet cute where they were both spying on Sam and then their eyes met across the cafeteria?
No. I was thinking here, that thought came to me when Yellow Eyes said, like, Sam is John's favorite. And I was like, does that come from John's psyche? Like, is that something John actively thinks about that Yellow Eyes was able to access in his memory bank? Because you are to presume that Yellow Eyes has access to John's memories, and so the things that he's saying to Dean, because I mean he just talks to Dean in this scene, but like the things that he says to Dean about like their family dynamic are true. Because I was gonna ask you later, like, do you think this is true? And, like, the thing is, I think it is.
Yeah, maybe so. I don't know. Like, favorite's a hard thing to define. So, Yellow Eyes says, you want to know why I killed Mommy and Jess? Because they got in the way. Sam asks, in the way of what? And he says, my plans for you, Sammy. You and all the children like you. And... for some reason, Dean interrupts him. Like, shut up. Like, I'm trying to listen here. But he says, can you just get this over with? I can't stand the monologuing. And Yellow Eyes says, funny, but that's all part of your MO, isn't it? Masks all that nasty pain. Masks the truth. And Dean says, like, oh yeah, what's that? And he says, you fight and you fight for this family. But the truth is, they don't need you. Not like you need them. Sam, he's clearly John's favorite. Even when they fight, it's more concern than he's ever shown you. Okay, and Dean says, I bet you're real proud of your kids too, huh? Oh wait, I forgot. I wasted them. Huh, yeah, I guess, well, favorite's a hard thing to define, because I'd say perhaps, like, kicking someone out and telling someone to kill him maybe cancels out him caring about Sam more.
I think, like, whether either of them are the favorite doesn't mean jack shit in terms of, like, they were still abused as children. So,
yeah.
I mean,
agreed.
Does it really matter?
Yeah, but I guess it matters to Dean, and he is not having a good time today.
Do you think this is an existing insecurity for Dean? Or, like, this was like introduced to him by Yellow Eyes?
I think he knew that Sam didn't need him as much as he needs Sam.
But yeah, like the whole concept that like your family, you need your family more than they need you. I guess like with Sam, Dean is aware. That's why he is acting the way he is, which is like almost trying to manipulate Sam into coming with him.
Yep.
With John, do you think he's aware?
I don't think he's aware because of, his last episode, like, oh, I wish we were there to back him up. Him generally thinking that John's safety is something that he's responsible for. Like, I think he thinks that John does need him. So this is kind of hard to hear.
This scene is a lot. The framing of it too is so menacing. Like,
Right.
John is so in Dean's face. And like the whole time I was like, no, this is so upsetting.
Do we see Sam's face during this scene at all?
I don't even fucking remember. I think we just go back and forth between Dean and Yellow Eyes, and that's it. And like,
it's like
it's fascinating because when you go on Dean's frame, it's like normal, and then you go on John's face, and then you see how close they are, and you're like, poor Dean. I feel so bad for him.
Yeah, but also, like, I would like to know what Sam's reaction to hearing that he's John's favorite is.
Yeah, that must not feel very good.
Yeah, because he's like, oh, I'm his favorite, and this is still what happened. Like, I would rather not be his favorite. Yeah, Dean eventually recovers, sort of, and spits back, saying, like, I bet you're real proud of your kids too, huh? Oh, wait, I killed them. And Yellow Eyes gets quite mad and starts trying to kill Dean. He starts, like, there's, like, invisible gashes coming out of his chest. The blood pattern looks kind of like the Hellhounds, at the end of season 3, I think. And Sam starts yelling, trying to struggle against the force to try to save Dean. And Dean starts yelling, Dad, don't you let it kill me. Which, I mean, I guess this is the first time I feel like Dean recognizes that John is responsible for his safety in a way, and the fact that it's happening now, ouch. Dean continues to be murdered, and Sam keeps trying to save him. He tries to telekinesis the gun, but that doesn't happen. Dean says, Dad, please, and then he passes out, and then suddenly Yellow Eyes' eyes turn not yellow, and John's back, and he starts whispering, stop it. And during this second, when he has control, like, Sam gets unpinned, and he, like, gets to run for the Colt. He aims it at Yellow Eyes, who has retaken over John. And he says, you kill me, you kill Daddy. And Sam says, I know, and then shoots John in the leg.
Just in the leg, because he's trying to save John.
Yeah, boo.
But like, I was like, what is the mechanic of like,
right,
the, like, it kills everything, but only when it's a fatal shot,
right,
for
like, I don't
the vessel.
it.
Like, what?
I don't understand. But
I mean, it makes sense, I guess, because like, if you graze a demon, like, it wouldn't make sense if they die, you know.
That's true, but like, I don't, like, where's the essence of the demon concentrated in the, like, vessel body?
Yeah,
though?
what if the demon is like in the femur, bro?
Yeah, like, what if it's hanging out in the big toe?
Yeah, like, exactly. It's a big toe demon.
Yeah.
Also called a hangnail.
Yeah. So true. Yellow Eyes falls backwards and Dean is released. Sam runs over and he's like talking to Dean in sort of like a soft, soothing voice, going like, Dean, hey, oh god, you've lost a lot of blood. And Dean goes, where's Dad? And Sam goes, he's right here, Dean.
And then Dean.
Dean.
Dean says, check on him. Check on him first. Go check on him.
God. It's so much. I think during this moment I was like, do you think Dean feels guilty for asking John to save him? Like, this man has so many disorders.
I mean, like, he didn't shoot the shot.
But, I don't know, like, I guess he, like, gave Sam the opening or something. So, Sam goes over and checks on John.
Oh my god. I just had a thought. Like, I don't know why, but, like, the concept that Dean doesn't want to die here. Like, suddenly it just hit, you know, like, suddenly I'm, like, tearing up.
Oh.
He doesn't want to die! He doesn't want to die. Like, his desires lie anywhere else other than death. And, like, you can't say that, I feel like, for a lot of future seasons, Dean.
Mm-hmm.
So, now that he's so adamant that, like, I have to stay alive and everyone has to stay alive, my desires lie anywhere else other than just this being done. Oh, come on, Dean.
So Sam runs over to John, who yells, like, the demon is still alive, it's inside me, I can feel it. Sorry. Yells at Sam, you shoot me in the heart, son, do it now. And then Dean behind him starts yelling, Sam, don't you do it, and John starts yelling, you gotta hurry, shoot me, son, I'm begging you, we can end this here and now, Sammy. And Dean says, Sam, no. And, like, Sam's just, like, kind of frozen, holding the gun, not knowing what to do. And then suddenly the demon leaves in a black cloud through John's mouth, and he's gone.
Bye-bye, Yellow Eyes. See you in literally, I don't know, one episode? I don't know, but, like, he shows up.
Yeah.
Okay, in the car, Sam is driving and John is in the passenger seat. And he comforts John by saying that, you know, the hospital is 10 minutes away. And John says that he's surprised that Sam didn't kill it, that he thought they saw eye to eye about killing the demon. Hashtag before maybe, hashtag before everything. Why did I say hashtag? I meant, like, code. Like, well, whatever. Let's just put the hashtag in.
But, and because in the last episode, John literally promised Dean, like, yeah, like, if it goes south, I'll prioritize saving myself over any of that. Like, he was lying. He was so lying.
Sam looks at Dean in the rearview mirror, and he says, no, sir. Not before everything.
Wow.
He says, like, we still have the Colt and the one bullet. We should just start over. We already found the demon once, and as he's talking, boom, a huge ass truck. Stop laughing!
Grandpa truck!
This is a serious scene.
Grandpa
This is a serious,
truck.
very...
Grandpa truck!
This is a very...
Grandpa truck!
It's literally Grandpa truck! This truck is fucking big. It's like a 14-wheeler at the very least. And it hits the car. And so we see that the truck driver is a demon. And the song Bad Moon Rising is playing as we see Sam, Dean, and John bloody in the Impala. Cool shit.
Yeah.
Very funny scene.
That was the funniest shit ever.
We should be serious. This is a very serious scene. But also, like, the fact that, like, it hits 3 times. You know what I mean? Like, they cut 3 times from different angles of the crash. And it's like, okay, we get it. Like, it sure is crashing into that car. But the scene where, like, Bad Moon Rising is playing.
Yeah,
and
that's good.
Everything else they're, like, panning from the demon to Sam, Dean, and John is very, very good. That's the end of the episode. Crystal.
Yes.
What did you think about this one?
I mean, it was fine. I understand that it's good, and there are moments that got me emo, but I'm forever going to be bitter that this is a Dean episode.
This episode is interesting to me because it's a season finale, right? So I can't help but compare it to the other season finales that I remember.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely better than the ones I've heard about.
So as for a season finale, I think this one is like in the middle. Like the stakes feel high enough while still not being like out of this world like in some other finales, you know? So I guess viewing it as a season finale, like it did wrap up what they wanted to wrap up. But, you know, enough loose ends to proceed to keep you hanging. And also like the themes of the season culminated in this one. Well, Dean's theme, Sam's themes, whatever. You know what I mean?
They just decided at the last moment that he was Mr. Revenge Boy. Like, this only developed, like, in the last 2 episodes. You are literally not Bad Moon Rising, and you will never be Bad Moon Rising, is what I think about this episode.
Okay, best line, worst line. Best line.
I like when Yellow Eyes says, "What? You're the only one that can have a family?" Just because I would like to see it. I would like to see it.
Okay, I'll go for my worst line first.
Okay.
I don't like the line like, "You guys think you invented lying to the cops," because I said I thought it was way too casual for the scene prior, and it's like why are we bantering like this? And I get that they're trying to establish Bobby as like a light-hearted person who you can banter with, but still, like, have a little decorum. Somebody just died. What's your worst line?
I didn't like that's kind of a turn on you hitting a girl. Like, it's just like a weirdly gendered sexual thing. Like, Meg being sexual is like, I don't love it, but like sometimes it's cool. Or, like, fine, but that was just weird.
For best line, I really like the line, "You know, you fight and you fight for this family, but the truth is they don't need you, not like you need them." Because it's true, you know? It's true. And I guess the truth of it is what gets to me. Because, like, just because it's true doesn't mean it will hurt any less. You know? Like, this reminds me of that one post that's like, Sam wanting to get away being the right thing to want, and Dean hurting when he realizes that Sam doesn't need him the way he needs Sam, are both truths that can coexist. The thing is, like, people give Dean shit a lot for his actions, which, you know, I totally get. But, like, if you blame him for just being more attached, I feel like that's like a line that's like, he can't control that shit. You can't control that. Okay, IMDb rating.
I feel like it's high.
I'm sure it's high, but
I mean, for some reason, y'all gave Salvation an 8.8, so I guess I'll just go 8.8 again.
oh, Jesus Christ.
What?
Salvation was an 8.8.
Yeah.
I just remembered and felt so absolutely horrible. I'll give this one an 8.9, I guess, just to bump it up a little bit, because it is better than Salvation, and I feel like people would like the final episode of season 1 a lot, because, you know, it's season 1.
Maybe the absolute humor of that car crash bumped their score down. Because I feel like this could have been the end of the show, and then they just put in a car crash so that there had to be a new season. I mean, I'm glad they did, so we got to cast, but yeah.
Let's see. Take another fucking guess.
What?
Take another guess.
Over a 9?
Just take another guess.
Okay, 9.1?
It's 9.2.
Oh my god, for what?
I guess it's good.
It's fine.
Is it a good episode? It's Dog Dean Afternoon was more enjoyable to watch.
I don't know. I guess if you've only watched season 1, then it's probably good.
I think if you're a Dean girl and you like season 1 Dean, like, this is his culmination of all that. So you could like it. Some of these are like, wow, that's a cliffhanger. Like, they commend the cliffhanger.
the review titled, "No, it's not the end. Brace yourself for more, guys, because it just gets better." Does it?
Are you sure?
I mean, there is cast later, so... Sorry, I'm just reading a review that says, "When Sam and Dean caught Meg, I was so happy. She deserved it. I hate her so much, and I thought it was really funny when Dean called her a bitch and said she wasn't a girl. What's wrong with you? Who are you?"
What is happening in that review? What do you mean you liked it when Dean called her a bitch and also not a girl? What is going on?
I don't understand. Yeah, they said, "I know there's no way they can kill off Sam and Dean. Dean especially. I love him so much." Typical.
This review was made in 2006.
Yeah, because they said, "I can't wait until next season."
May 4, right, is when it aired. May 7 is this review was written. It says, "I particularly found this one to be one of the worst episodes of the season. I was so pumped to watch it, and I had an unfulfilled feeling after watching it. What does this episode do for the future of the show?" So true.
So true.
So that's it for this episode of Busty Asian Beauties. Next week, we will be discussing season 1 in general and doing a Q&A. So give us your questions and leave us a rating or a review wherever you get your podcasts.
Follow us on social media. We are on Twitter at twitter.com/beautiespodcast and on Tumblr at bustyasianbeautiespod.tumblr.com. Our official tag is BABPod, BABPod, and thank you to everyone who's donated to our Ko-fi at ko-fi.com/bustyasianbeautiespod.
You can email us any feedback, comments, or inquiries at bustyasianbeautiespod@gmail.com. See you guys next time. Bye!
Bye.